Everyone, and welcome to the City of Port Orford. I'm Mayor Ann Velisis, and I want to welcome you all and thank you all for coming out tonight to welcome Senator Jeff Merkley for his Curry County Town Hall. Of course, town hall meetings are a great way for citizens to learn directly about what's happening in DC, and also for our elected officials to hear from their constituents about our concerns, questions, and ideas. So this town hall is a very important space for our democracy, and I'm grateful we can all come here together tonight. So to begin the event, I would like to invite you all to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we start, I also want to recognize the other elected officials that we have here in the room today. And I ask you to please stand. I think we have Mayor Tammy Hoffman from Gold Beach here. Remember, Tammy here, Tammy Beach, not here, okay. We have Port Orford Councilor Gary Burns. We have Gold Beach Councilor Phoebe Skinner. Is there? Okay, thank you all very much for your public service. And okay, well now, and I'm just going to say before we end, I'd like to invite you all at the end to just stick around for a few brief local comments and announcements. Okay, now it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce to you Senator Jeff Merkley. Jeff has been called the Roots and Boots Senator because of his deep Oregon roots and his boots on the ground approach, traveling to meet with Oregonians in every corner of the state. He was born in southern Oregon, timber town of Myrtle Creek, and he spent his early years in Douglas County, where his father worked as a millwright. That's the mechanic who keeps the machinery in the mill running. Jeff learned the ropes of public policy as an intern for Oregon Senator Mark Hatfield, and later worked on national security issues for the Secretary of Defense. But it was Jeff's experience leading housing nonprofits here in Oregon, including a chapter for Habitat for Humanity, that kickstarted his call for public service in Oregon. He was elected to the Oregon House in 1998 and became the House Speaker in 2007. 2 years later, he was sworn into the same U.S. Senate seat once held by Hatfield. In the Senate, Jeff is taking on the powerful to deliver for the people. He's been ringing the alarm bells about threats to democracy, fighting for the 4 foundations families need to thrive: access to healthcare, quality education, decent, affordable housing, and good-paying jobs. Jeff serves as the top Democrat on the Senate Budget Committee, where he's leading the fight against the vision families lose, billionaires win. In addition, Jeff is the only member of the Oregon delegation serving on the powerful Appropriations Committee, where he brings an Oregon perspective to important federal funding decisions, including securing nearly 500 community-initiated projects across Oregon over the past 4 years that bridge the rural-urban divide, including the Curry Health Network's chemotherapy treatment project, and also an award for Oregon Kelp Forest Protection and Restoration with the Oregon Kelp Alliance, which is housed right here in Port Orford. Jeff also serves as a top Democrat on the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee, putting him at the forefront of securing funding for wildfire prevention and recovery. Jeff holds a town hall in every Oregon county every year. This is his 3rd town hall this year and his 615th town hall overhaul. We're of course very happy to have him here, and I ask you to please join me in giving Senator Merkley a warm Port Orford welcome this evening. Jeff Merkley.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. I'm delighted to be here at the home of the Driftwood Eagles, and what a beautiful handmade podium this is. So, very cool. Wow. Challenging times. Well, let's start by putting a spotlight on something that is very encouraging, and that is a community organization that's doing good work. I try to do that at each of my town halls. And tonight we'll recognize Curry Watersheds Partnership, and the director, is it Lisa Coleman? Do I pronounce that right? Yeah. And Kelly Tinchak, Jen Nelson, Matt Swanson are here to, I think they're here. Come on up. Time I've come to Curry County, and every year there's always another organization that's doing important work that we haven't recognized before. So I'm so delighted to recognize. They're very involved in riparian, streamside restoration, and youth education programs that are related to that, and other outdoor research. And maybe you all can tell us a little bit about it.
Right, I'm Lisa Coleman. I'm the district manager for the Curry Soil and Water Conservation District, one of the 4 members of our partnership. We also have the Lower Road Watershed Council, the South Coast Watershed Council, and Curry Watersheds nonprofit. We have people here who are on the board of that. We're an intrepid little group that's been working together for about 30 years now on doing watershed work and education work in the schools and with the community at large. Yes, and we love our work. We love our watersheds, and we are so grateful for all the members of this community, because without you, we would not have any work to do. Again, we rely on landowners who are willing to have work done on their lands. We rely on the school districts to allow us to come in and work with their students. We rely on all the volunteers who come to our river cleanups and collect water samples for our storm chasers programs. We rely on the funders and the donors in our community. So this is truly a community-led effort. So we're just so proud to be here and to work with you all.
Thank you for this great effort. This is a flag that's been flown over the U.S. Capitol that we put in your care to use in appropriate fashion, but job well done. Thank you. So one of the challenges we have is Social Security, and I'm frustrated that Congress hasn't developed a plan or even voted on a plan to make sure that we have enough money in the trust fund so that this intergenerational deal that is so critical to seniors is safe. So I hopefully some of you got these on the way in. If you can fill it out and drop it off on the way out, I'm just trying to reinvigorate congressional discussion about this, because within the next 7 or so years, the trust fund will be completed, and then Social Security benefits would drop to only about 75, 77% of what they are now, and 50% of the folks who receive Social Security, it's 90 to 100% of their income. So it's extremely important that this be addressed. I went through this process well over a decade ago, where I had folks sit around the table and look at all the different think tank ideas, and we all basically came to the same conclusion, which was there was one thing that could be done at that point that would solve everything, and that was the raising the cap on the amount of personal income subject to Social Security premiums. Now that we've postponed acting for well over a decade, it's a little more complicated, and so that's why I'm getting feedback on all these different options. I also had available on the way in This ring the alarm bells, and so if you didn't get a copy, you can get a copy on the way out. But I am very concerned about different factors that are eroding our democratic republic and creating more of an authoritarian state. And when you hear just about one individual thing, for example, like the inspector generals were fired. It's one thing. But and then something else happens, something else. But what I'm trying to do is put together how the big picture, how essentially we're losing democracies around the world, not because men with guns stormed the Capitol, that's how it used to happen. Now it's happening from internal erosion, normally by an authoritarian figure, and there's 10 strategies that have been used, and all 10 of them are happening here in America right now, and that's why I'm ringing the alarm bells. And, okay, so we'll turn to your thoughts and questions. Senator Wyden and I are really the only senators that do town halls like this anymore, and it's because we believe that it's really important to have that dialogue, but in a more partisan world with it gets harder and harder to have dialogue. But here in Oregon, we've had an Oregon code, an Oregon way. And what that means in practice, if someone's speaking that you just profoundly disagree with, give them the respect to let them express their viewpoint, and we'll ask everyone else to do the same when it's your turn, and that way we can hear from anyone who has any particular perspective. And that's a pretty beautiful thing, and an important thing to have in a republic. Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah. All right, great. And we have a student who's going to kick off our questions, and then we're going to turn to the tickets that the mayor has mixed them up really well, make sure everyone gets an equal chance, and I'll read about 3 or 4 tickets at a time. And we'll run the microphone around and try to hear from as many people as possible. So let's start with Autumn Walker. Autumn, are you here? Okay, we'll get a microphone in your hand, and the floor is yours.
Hi. My question is, what was the hardest law you have worked on recently?
What was the hardest, what was it?
Law.
The hardest law. Well, this year, if I can interpret hardest law to be the one that I threw myself into and didn't want to pass, but actually passed, it's called House Bill 1, and it is the name that given to it by the administration is the Big Beautiful Bill by the president. I considered it to be a massive mistake because it cuts health care benefits and nutrition benefits and runs up additional $30 trillion in national debt to fund tax breaks for the richest Americans. And that's not government buying for the people, that's government that hurts ordinary people and helps billionaires. So that's the big factor. Now, on the more positive side, the interior bill that I worked on with my Republican colleague from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, we work very closely together. That's a spending committee. And the interior bill often is a difficult one to get passed, but we got it negotiated. It passed the House on Thursday, and it should pass the Senate this coming Thursday. And so, given I'm personally responsible for that each year, and because it's so important to our forest lands and our BLM lands and our effort to decrease the risk of fires and fight fires when they happen, all of that, that's more on the positive victory side. Thank you. And now, it's great to have a student kick this off, so well done. And then I think, Ashley, we're going to turn to you, I think, for the last question. Is Ashley here? Maybe? I don't see a hand, so I'm not sure. But it's here. Okay. Well, we will come to you at the end of the hour to wrap this up. So now we're going to hear all's thoughts, and I'm just reading the last 3 numbers on the right of these tickets, and it's 228 and 230 and 291. And if you could just wave your hand if you have one of those. Do I see any hands? Yes. And if you can start with your number and your name, and I'll ask my team to remind you, and then I'll retire them together. So right here, and then we'll come to you next, sir.
Hello, my name's Janet Jeffrey, and my husband and I live in Gold Beach. I have many concerns, but I felt like for tonight I had to distill and prioritize. So this is what I've come up with. I feel heartened sometimes, like we've got some hope, like today when a court said that Trump can't change our mail-in ballots for Oregon, but then tomorrow something will happen that feels like we have to take a step back again. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like we're ahead of him in the thinking. So is there any, this is my number one distilled priority, is there anything we can do to make sure he doesn't delay or stop our midterm elections?
Thank you, Jenna. What number did you have?
I got 228.
228. Thank you.
And my husband had
Oh, okay, all right, well, here we go. You are a very lucky couple. This is a concern, like, are we going to have elections unfold in the way that we believe that we've always just assumed they will? And the start of last year, I felt the answer was I wasn't so worried. Now I am worried. And let me tell you, in the last of the 10 rules in this pamphlet I handed out, it's on how to undo a republic. It's how you rig the next election. And there are 3 things going on right now. One of them is to the president's occurring gerrymandering of congressional districts. Texas did that, and then California responded, and then other states are considering it. And it just means that it isn't an honest representation of the state's citizens in Congress, which is what it's supposed to be. So that's a real concern. A second is he's trying to put together a national voter registration database, and with the ability to purge names off of it, and he's suing states like ours that have not handed it over. And I praise the Secretary of State Tobias Reed for not handing over our voting list to make it vulnerable in that fashion. But that's a concern. And the third is he's trying to undercut vote by mail. And the reason why is that if the election is solely voting on election day, there are a lot of ways to manipulate it. You can change the location of the precincts, put out misinformation about the location, put the voting places where there's no parking, have voting machines or people who aren't working too well, so the line gets long and people have to leave. And all those things are tried and true. They happen. They happen across America, each election style. And what we have done with vote by mail is say that can't happen. Everyone has the opportunity to vote, immune from those forms of manipulation. So rather than getting rid of vote by mail, I think we need to make sure vote by mail is available to everybody all across the country to increase the integrity. There's the second concern, and that's the use of emergency powers. And to give you an example, there's emergency power that goes normally by the initials IEPA. People kind of forget, including myself, what it stands for. So I'll just say IEPA. But it's basically about putting sanctions on countries that are doing bad things to America. And the president interpreted that emergency power sanction to mean he could set tariffs across to every country in the world. Tariffs have never been in the power of the presidency. Never. And in fact, the very first bill the Senate ever considered was a tariff bill. They sat around those first 26 senators saying, how much are we going to put on a bale of cotton, or are we going to put on a keg of honey, or so on and so forth. They worked through like 200 products. Well, a tariff is a tax, and the Constitution puts taxing power squarely in Congress. That's why what we have seen before with tariffs is a president may negotiate a strategy, but then it has to be passed by Congress. Like the USMCA, the US-Mexico-Canadian trade agreement is an example of that. The Supreme Court has taken a year and hasn't weighed in on the tariffs yet. I think they're going to weigh in and say the president can't do that. But then he may just summon another emergency power and say, there's like 25 emergency powers. Say, well, now I'm doing the tariffs with this. The abuse of emergency powers puts a little bit of scare in like, well, I'm postponing the election because emergency powers say I can do X, Y, or Z. And then the courts would have to say no, but the courts move slowly. So I do have some concern, which is why we need citizens to be very vocal in saying we must have the elections go forward without manipulation, without corruption, that this is the heart. And if enough of the nation is really emphasizing that, then I think we'll be okay, but it isn't this. Anybody worried about November elections? Okay. Okay, thank you. And the other was 2:30? Oh, that was yours. Okay, there were three. What was the other one?
We got 291 right here.
Okay, oh, we got it. Okay, great.
Yes, Mary Jane McBell, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Curry County. And we are very concerned about this whole postal stamping issue that has just come up, where the federal government is now saying that we can't postmark our mail when we put it in the mailbox or whatever. We think this is going to hurt both by mail and by people who need to vote. So what do you think about that?
It's a problem, and it may be, the motivation may have been in order to create a problem for vote by mail. I mean, there are ways to address it. We used to say the ballot had to be received by election day, and so after Thursday, the publicity was, do not mail your ballot, drop it off in a drop box. We might have to go back to that. And you had mentioned a challenge, that there was a court challenge on that, the postmark that just happened. Oh, okay, our ballot processors, okay. Yeah, so I'm sure this will be challenged, but we will have to adapt. I feel that we can adapt, we can go back to a different system. There's also was an effort to say you can't count ballot, you can't continue the counting after election day. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, find me a state that doesn't, somewhere in the state that the counting goes on for 2 or 3 days because they have more ballots than they wanted. Or I remember what the year I was elected to the Senate, Monoma County had a flood, and it took them about 4 days to count all the ballots. So I mean, we've got to resist these types of efforts. And thank you for the League of Women Voters and standing up for our democracy. You all did a great job. Okay, we've got 276, 277, and 248. We've got several folks, so we've got hands. We'll start back here and we'll talk to you.
Number 277.
Thank you.
My name's Ed Roberts. I'm a drafted Vietnam vet. And I'm a little worried about what's happening with Kelly. And they're trying to censure him over this soldiers not doing something because they think it's illegal. Now, how do you protect these soldiers? How do you define what's illegal and immoral? I mean, I'm from the generation of my life, Kent State. How many of these soldiers would have said no if they knew they could?
So Mark Kelly is a senator from Arizona. He's also a former astronaut. He and Alyssa Slotkin, a new senator from Michigan, who served in the CIA, and 4 House members did a video, and the video said, remember, American soldiers, that it is your right and responsibility to not follow an order if that order is unconstitutional. And that is, in fact, part of the training for our service members. Of course, it's a very hard thing when you're in the service, which also cultivates your job is to listen and act, and let the higher ranks do the thinking. But they were reminding soldiers and people at every other level that there is this principle. The president and his team responded by basically going on the attack on these folks, launching investigations of them. So here's the executive branch applying a political lens to a simple statement of law by members of Congress. This is incredibly intimidating. Even if nothing, who's ever prosecuted, the amount of time and energy and money you have to invest in your defense is incredible. It's designed to, this whole strategy is to discourage members of Congress from speaking out on issues. And now, the president's team have said they're launching a military operation in which you take away someone's rank and pension as a disciplinary measure. And they're saying, Mark Kelly, we don't like what you did, we're going to take away your rank and your pension. And I mean, Mark Kelly, it isn't the money, right? It is the principle of suppressing speech, and it is the principle of the speech that was put forward is important in a democracy. Like, it's important for folks to know that if you're asked to do something illegal or unconstitutional, you have the right to say no. So it's a very, very concerning situation, and it's part of a broader set of intimidation that is including like the weaponization of the Department of Justice to go after a list of political enemies. And we had some of that under Nixon, and we kind of said that's unacceptable, and now we have that problem again, and we have to reject that strategy and say that's just not acceptable to have an enemies list and use the power of government to go after those enemies. I'm glad you raised it, and that's the problem, and we have to resist what's happening. And then we have 248 and 276.
Hi, I'm Jane Opiate, 248, live in Brookings, Oregon. Thank you for coming very much. And thank you all, because this is where I get my strength. I get bogged down with everything I see on a daily basis. And when I gather with you guys, I start to feel hope and their strength, and we can resist. So thank you all for coming. Like the last question, you said we must resist. What does that mean? And then really my main question is, with all the stuff that's going on with ICE, where is all that money coming from and who approved that? That's our tax dollars going to all that. And they don't seem to be trained or vetted, or it's just, they weren't here 6 months ago, the volume of them. So how is that happening, and is there anything we can do to actually do something to resist?
So the source of the resources is that the House Resolution 1, the bill, the big beautiful bill that I was talking about, also had in it $150 billion of additional money for ICE, and an extra $150 billion outside the normal process for the Department of Defense. And so that money to ICE meant ICE could go, oh, we're gonna offer $70,000 bonuses, come in and sign up. I have to believe that folks are being hired who might not have well qualified in the past, but they're trying to hire a lot of people fast, and so they may not be training them before they're in the field. But there is something, I think, more malevolent going on, and that's an open display of racism, of basically targeting people because of the color of their skin. And that type of profiling means everyone feels like, well, if I have dark skin, am I a second-class citizen because I can be stopped, but maybe your skin is lighter colored and you won't be? And to my dismay, the Supreme Court ruled in the shadow docket without full hearing that it is legal for ICE to use skin color to profile and stop people. But the problem doesn't stop there. It then includes, we are going to use very aggressive tactics. So we had that, how many folks saw the video of Minneapolis? I mean, almost everybody in the country saw that. It's just shocking. And then I was on the plane on Thursday night coming back, and I got a text that just a few blocks from my house that two individuals had been shot by federal agents as well, by Customs and Border Protection. And I'm like, oh my goodness, but you've seen people being ripped out of the windows of their car or pulled out and thrown on the ground, and people say, I'm a citizen, they're still being kind of beat up and by our government, but often detained without due process, prevented from having access to a lawyer, prevented from telling families where they are, moved away from the local area before family members can weigh in or get a local lawyer, and sometimes deported. And so there's a whole set of violations of due process. And due process is what protects all of us, our freedom. It is freedom. It is government. You cannot do that. We do not live in a tyranny. You cannot do that. You must follow the rules. And those rules are being often ignored. So we have both kind of profiling, and then we have due process being run over, and then we have misinformation from the president's team. The Secretary of Homeland Security said no veterans have been deported. Not true. Then she said no citizens have been deported. Not true. And then they said Grego Garcia, who was sent to El Salvador, was not here legally, and that he was part of a gang. That was not true. And then they said the student at Columbia University had resisted arrest, and it turned out there were cameras at Columbia University, and it turned out he actually completely complied. And so this is not okay that I can't trust, and I don't think any of us can trust right now the statements that come from the Department of Homeland Security. So it's multiple problems together, and they do have funding. I think there has to be a lot of pushback. See, let me tell you, I voted and supported a bill in 2013 that was security at the border, massive investment in security border, but also legal immigration for a process for refugees and to meet employment needs. We have agricultural needs. We have so many productive members of our community right now who are terrified. And if you don't have farm workers, the farmer's in trouble. So we're tied into this. There was a statement by Theodore Roosevelt. He said, you can be tough without being cruel. Well, right now, I think we're in the cruel stage. Let's restore respect and a rule of law that works, pass a comprehensive immigration bill, and recognize the contribution of so many people in our community who are right now terrified. And 276.
Hi, Senator Murphy, thank you so much for being here. My name is Monty Prescott, I live here in Port Orford. And I'm gonna shift gears a little bit and talk about our local area, specifically the South Coast and our pristine waters that we have here in our headwaters of our beautiful rivers and the threats of strip mining to those rivers. And I want to thank you, sorry I'm nervous. I want to thank you so much for everything
You're doing a great
you've done
job.
over all these years to protect those waters. So I know that, the president and the administration are really pushing hard to do even more resource extraction all over the country and the need for the specific minerals that are proposed to be mined here. And I know that, I believe you proposed some legislation to further protection for those waters.
Yeah, it's the North Fork of the Smith River.
Yes, and I know the Hunter Creek and Pistol River and the Buffer headwaters are threatened. So, hopefully you'll prevail and your legislation will go forward. If not, what can Congress do to continue to help protect these waters? Thank you.
Thank you. And the bill that I put forward came out of a town hall like this where folks said, hey, we are so connected to the river and the quality of the water with sports fishing and the water that goes out into the sea here, that we can't have, if the river's destroyed, it really profoundly hurts our hearts and our economy. That's sort of, I've not been able to get it passed into law. Senator White has a broader set of protections that he continues to work on. He is the most senior member of the Energy Committee that puts those bills forward. The very first bill that I voted on 17 years ago was a slate of bills for different protections like that. And there were like over 100 bills in that package. That has kind of been the way it works. Like you build up when every state has a couple things they want to get done, then there's a massive package. We have not been able to get one of those significant packages done. But what Senator White and I have tried to do is position ourselves to be in that package at that moment. So we're going to keep pressing. There's been some rumors that later this year there might be a momentum for this that is a significant package of bills, so we're working to be in place for that again, but right now no immediate action on it. And what I was reading about was that a foreign corporation has now put in mining claims for a big section, 1,500 acres or something, for potential nickel extraction. So this is not an idle concern in how it could affect the river. How many folks would like to see that the headwaters of the river protected? Okay, we have 293, 213, and 273. We have one hand here, and then the other two, and then one in the back, okay?
Hi, Senator. My name is Janet Jansen. This is touching a little on the midterm elections. I understand that if the president tries to declare a state of emergency or some other reason to delay those elections, that it's up to Congress. He has to ask Congress for that power to delay them. And my biggest question is, do you see any signs that the members of Congress that were in support of this administration are finally deciding enough is enough and ready to exercise their power to put the brakes on some of this?
So I'm not concerned about members of Congress, majority of Congress supporting any use of emergency power to delay elections. I'm concerned about the president claiming emergency powers, delaying elections, and the courts moving too slowly to rectify it. That's more the concern I have about it. I just believe my colleagues in the Senate and in the House would not accept justification, a few maybe, but not a large number. But most of those emergency powers don't require Congress to give an approval to them. So the president can claim them, and it will say, when X, Y, Z happens, the president is given the power to do this. And so if the president simply says, well, I decided that's happened, and I'm claiming this power, even if it's not explicitly listed, but it's like, oh, it's related, so I think I have, well, then the courts have to say no. Or Congress could pass a law immediately and say, what you're talking about is not allowed. For Congress to act quickly also is a problem. So, yeah, speed and Congress in the same sentence, right? It's not go too well. So yeah, a court can act quickly, except that normally what happens, the lower court will make a ruling, and then they'll stay the ruling to give the appeal court time to review it. And then the appeal court may rule and let's say that ruling. Meanwhile, you're still trapped by whatever is happening until the Supreme Court weighs in. And all that normally doesn't happen quickly. Maybe an election, something involving elections, maybe it would happen very quickly. But what if that is declared 1 week before and it takes 2 weeks? Well, suddenly we aren't holding elections on election day. I'll tell you something I was very disturbed about. So on Tuesday, Tuesday was the 5-year anniversary of the storming of the Capitol. If you went to the White House website, it said there was no storming of the Capitol, it was a peaceful demonstration. Nancy Pelosi caused a lot of trouble because she failed to do X, Y, Z, and one party, the Democrats, are gaslighting the American public into saying that something actually happened that day. And I'm like, this is Orwellian in a way I could never have imagined. I mean, if you were in the Capitol that day, when it was stormed, as I was, I mean, we had 170 police officers injured. We had 5 that died because of the attack that day. That was not a peaceful demonstration outside the Capitol. And then I read that the plaque honoring the police officers who were injured or all of them actually who defended the Capitol, not just the Capitol Police, but others came and helped. The plaque that was ordered by law to be posted on the west wall of the Capitol, that the Speaker Johnson had hidden it away in a back room and wouldn't allow it to be put up. And that plaque is really cool. I mean, it says, honoring those who who came to defend the symbol of our republic, the Capitol, and it says their heroism will never be forgotten. That plaque is tossed into a back room. So I went and drafted a resolution, and the resolution says the Senate will put up this plaque. And then Tom Tillis from North Carolina, a Republican, he said, I will partner with you on this. And we went to the floor on Thursday, just before I headed to the airport, and got unanimous consent to put that plaque up in the Senate. It's going to go up Sunday. And I'm hoping it will create enough attention that the Speaker will change his position. So, and put it where it should be. 273, 213, 293.
That's 213.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, well, you got if your husband allows you to claim his ticket, I guess so. He says yes.
Okay, so yeah, just the last part of my question was,
Guys, can you get a mic up there?
Signs that members of Congress that were supportive of the president are moving the other way and are willing to vote against this administration when they are wrong.
Am I seeing signs that members of Congress who are very supportive of the administration are starting to move away from that? And the answer is yes. And the big change was 2 months ago, the November election. What you saw happen in Georgia, and I really try to have town halls not be partisan, so this is a challenge to your question, but one party that is not in power swept 2 statewide elections in Georgia, Supreme Court elections in Pennsylvania, the governorships of New Jersey and Virginia, and a host of other local elections. And suddenly, a group of colleagues were like, we need to start separating ourselves because there is a train going over a cliff, we're on it, we better jump off it. And so, did you just see that the House just had 15 folks join from the majority party, who joined with the majority party into a 3-year extension of those enhanced tax credits? Without those enhanced tax credits, many people can't afford a healthcare policy on the exchange. I've talked to so many small businesses that said, our people who work for us, and often like a business of 4 to 10 people, they get their healthcare on the healthcare exchange. You know, they buy private insurance, comparing the policies, using the tax credits, and a number of them have said to me they have polled their employees, and more than half are not able to buy insurance. And you know, they're just taking a gamble. So now that was very powerful. And then on the Senate side this last week, we voted to take from committee the War Powers Resolution that says the president cannot operate military actions in Venezuela without an authorization for the use of military force. And 5 colleagues from the majority party joined the minority party, and we moved it out of committee. Now that puts it on the calendar. Now next week we hope to actually vote on it. And you may have seen that the president has said he's launching a pressure campaign to get those 5 to reverse their vote. But those would not have happened before November, 2 months ago. Okay. And so did anyone else in that group? Yes. Okay.
And Senator, we have 10 more minutes, 2 questions and a student.
273, my name is Stephanie Gomes. I live here in Orford. I didn't prepare anything, just came here out of deep frustration, anger, fear, all of it. I think exhaustion. I think a lot of us are feeling like we're sitting at the end of the fire hose. And it's been turned on at full blast, and it's every day. And you know that. And I want to thank you for what you've been doing, what you can do. But it feels like we're operating in different realities. You're operating in the Senate, in Congress, on this the business as usual reality where the Trump administration is operating in, and we can do whatever we want reality. So we're doing business as usual. They're doing whatever they want. And are we going to make it to November to even be able to vote? And I think the key is, what can we do? I see your document that lays out, we know the authoritarianism playbook. We know Tim Snyder, we've read the book. We know the problems. You describe the problems very well. But nobody can give us actionable things to do other than to march, to call. I call your office all the time. Probably like march, call. I feel like I need to do more, and I want to do more, and getting a business as usual, it's not going to work, and I don't think we're going to make it to November if there's not somebody else playing 3D chess and getting ahead of what this administration is going to do to stop November. So who's playing 3D chess?
This is a profound frustration because in our system, the executive carries the power of implementation, and the assumption is they take an oath to the Constitution and they will operate within the laws and the Constitution. And when they do not do that, there are 2 remedies in the Constitution. One is the court saying, no, you cannot do that, stop that. And the second is impeachment and conviction, removal from office. When one party controls all 3, that is the House, the Senate, and the executive office, basically the congressional option, that is impeachment, is off the table. And so now you have, and by the way, it takes a majority, a supermajority in the Senate, so even then, it's a very difficult power to exercise. It's never been exercised in terms of the president. It may have been exercised, was expected to be exercised when Nixon resigned.
Supermajority 67, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
For the impeachment power,
Yeah, I'm just asking.
I'm not sure if it's 3/5. I know we didn't come close.
It's 67.
67, two-thirds. So, yeah, so that's, in short, that's not happening. And by the way, if the president was impeached, there is a vice president. That would be, I'm not sure, an improvement. So your frustration is so real, but in those books, and you mentioned one of them, on tyranny. Another major book that I have encouraged all my members of the caucus to read it. It's called How Democracies Die. And it's really from going through the case studies of all these other nations where the republic was turned into Trump and state, is where I came up with these 10 rules. That was my kind of summary of those experiences. And then I'm like, wow, all 10 of them, Trump's doing all 10 of them, wow. And so people in my town halls last year said, come on, think of what else you can do. What else can you do? And I'm like, I'm using my voice, I'm educating, I'm voting, I'm trying to create colleagues to join me from across the aisle. But one thing that it led to was my decision to do that 22-hour, 37-minute speech. The second thing was to produce this template to keep kind of the process the same. But here's the thing, those are not, what you were talking about, those actions, those are not trivial actions. That is, in the countries where the drift to authoritarian state have been stopped, there are two things that stop it. One is citizen protest. It means citizens recognize the government's off basis and are mad about it. That matters. So the No Kings March matters. The 7 million people turned out, the biggest demonstration of grassroots rejection. And I'll tell you, I noticed some of the military hats. Thank you, all of you who have served. I was really struck. I was in La Pine that day for No Kings, and a number of military folks said, I served in Vietnam, and I didn't have a choice about going, but I went, and I felt I'm doing my duty for my country, and I'm defending rights, and I'll be damned if the things that military folks have fought to defend for 200 years are going to be taken away by one president, and that's why I'm not doing that. So, first, resist the temptation to be on a couch with a pillow over your head, and that's tempting, but you're all here tonight, so you're not doing that, but it's like we can't save our country if we're laying on the couch. Second of all, fiercely hold your electeds accountable. It matters to march, it matters to call, it matters to write, it matters to demonstrate outside our offices. And so, yes, do that. And recruit your friends to do it. And third, join an affinity group, because to be angry and alone is to be depressed and ineffective. But to be angry and organized with others is to be energized and effective, and we need to be energized and effective if we're going to save our republic. So we have our final question is from Ashton.
Senator, sorry, we have one more question, and then,
one
so
more,
we'll have to
okay.
go kind of a quick question, and then the student.
An ultimate question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Kirk Weiler from Port Orford. You did say that you wanted this, and thank you for the answers to the question of what can we do. It's been really important. You stated that the turnaround in Congress was a result of local elections several months ago. That's where it started. Can you just expound a little bit on what we might do with the local government issues at the county level the school board level, real on the ground things that we can do to state the direction we want to go. Still being able to have conversations in our communities with our neighbors, but bringing it right down to the county level.
Well, wow. My head's so much in the federal space, and those were like state legislative elections, governor's elections, and so forth. But those were elections where people could demonstrate where they stood by casting a ballot, and that really resonated. I think you're not talking about the election power, but just like the discussion among local elected bodies. Is that more the question?
Yes, attendance to county meetings, et cetera.
We've got some local officials here that might be able to answer that better. I mean, I do know that when you bring national issues into a local board, it can be very disruptive. Because you're trying to solve the local water problem and the transportation problem. And so if it's a resolution regarding what Congress should do, I'm not sure if that just increases animosity, but maybe sometimes a resolution, of citizens say, hey, we would like this resolution, maybe it produces productive conversation. But having respectful conversation is a challenge. And when it's outside the jurisdiction of the body, then it gets a little touchier. I remember when I was in the state legislature, we had some resolutions regarding national policy, and we produced some good debates in Salem. But I also remember some that were considered more divisive and made people more angry than they were. So I'm not in a great position to coach about what local bodies can do. So I've been asked that question. I'm just kind of pondering what I'm missing there. But certainly, let me frame it differently. Having local conversations in a respectful fashion in whatever venue is important. That is how ideas change and shift. One of the challenges we have, and it is a whopper, is we have different cable television channels that present very different images of the world, which means we start from a different set of facts. And not only are the facts different, but often the cable televisions, if it's over here, it demonizes those folks over there. If the cable television is over here, it demonizes those folks. So it has really, that system has deepened the divide. As I was growing up, our big battles over Vietnam and civil rights, we had huge differences, but we started with the same information. Now, sometimes that information was wrong. We heard the same wrong information from all three networks, but it was the same information. Now we don't have that. So that just having to recognize it takes extra effort to listen and share in the context of that dramatically different story being told from different news channels. My wife comes from Minneapolis, and she was with her high school friends a couple of years ago, and they asked if they could do a town hall with me. So we had her 5 or 6 friends on the phone, I'm on the phone, and as you all know, I'm a little bit more from the blue world. Her friends are a little bit more from the red world, so they were asking questions, and I was explaining my viewpoint. And one of her friends said, but Jeff, what you're saying is different than what I hear all the time. And how am I supposed to know who to believe? I'm raising kids. I'm working. How am I supposed to figure out what the real answer is and who's sharing information with integrity? And I thought that is the challenge that we have. And so we have to be extra respectful in talking with our friends and family members about what's going on, realizing there's a lot of different information floating out there around the world. Let's turn to our student for the final question. And I'm not sure if it's is it Ashton or Ashwin?
Ashton.
Ashwin. Okay, great. Ashwin. Welcome. Ashton. Ashton. Okay.
All right, thanks, Senator. I didn't realize I had this slot since we already did our interview. But So considering the conditions.
He came to the press media meeting earlier and interviewed me, so that was pretty cool.
Considering the condition of Venezuela's economy under Nicolas Maduro's leadership, how do you see Venezuela? How do you think Venezuela fares after this, considering his arrest, and what do you think the repercussions against the United States look like?
So let's start with Venezuela is a country that had a really vibrant democracy for 3 decades and then lost it through the same types of things we've been talking about tonight. And Chavez, followed by Maduro, did the dismantling of their democracy and created a strongman state. You've seen similar thing in Nicaragua, is another case of that happening. Turkey's another case of that happening. And Maduro was not pursuing economic policies that were serving the country well, certainly wasn't pursuing anything close to democracy. He turned it into a strongman state. So there's, I think, very few people who are saying, oh, well, he was a good ruler, why did we remove him? No, he was not. But what Team Trump has done is to say, it isn't about supporting democracy. It's about having a dictator who does what we want. And we think the vice president will be the dictator who will do what we want. She will be malleable to our goal. And the goal is to have American oil companies control the oil of Venezuela. That's the story. Now, I would love if, I don't support the strategy, essentially they said, hey, there's an indictment and we have the right to go grab that person out of another country. That's an extraterritorial rendition. And we don't, as a country, we don't support that principle. We don't think Canada can have an indictment against an American and someone here, they have an indictment against you, they can come snatch you out of our country. No, we don't support that principle. And the second key principle, which Trump has been calling the Monroe Doctrine, where Donald and Monroe merged together. And the doctrine is we control the resources within our sphere of influence in this Western Hemisphere. Well, I tell you, that's a terrible doctrine for us, because if that's the principle of the world, do you know how many interests we have within China's sphere of influence? We have Indonesia, Malaysia, we have Singapore, we have, and then if you go on further east, you got South Korea, you've got the Philippines to the south, you've got, I mean, we don't believe China should be able to exclude America from having economic relations with all those countries. So it's a second principle. The third thing is this whole vision of might makes right, gunboat diplomacy reawakens the feeling among many countries of what we used to do in the past was use our military might to extract their resources for our benefit, and it was a source of massive resentment. So, the process of undermining at least 3 major principles that the U.S. does not accept internationally is not great. The idea we're using our might to have their oil controlled by American companies is certainly not helpful to the Venezuelan people. I think it's a very messy, ill-conceived strategy, and it's also a massive distraction from all the problems here at home, which are people are pressed to the wall economically on health care and on housing. Our schools are hurting for more resources, and investment in infrastructure that needs to be happening isn't necessarily happening. It's a huge distraction from all of that. In that sense, it may be a successful policy, but I would suggest we not let Venezuela let us forget about all the issues here at home that the president wants us to forget about. Mayor Hill has some comments after I leave, but I wanted to close on something that I think is celebrating our own state. That's this handout that Oregon Treasure Quest Because I go to every county every year, I kept stumbling on cool things and going, I don't think anybody in Oregon knows about this, or not many people know about this. So let's put together a book of cool things. These are all non-commercial stuff that are in each county. And then if you go to 10 counties and you send in a selfie of you at one of the things in here, you're invited to an annual Treasure Quest party. It was completely sold out this last November, so we had to double it. But if you need a break from all the heaviness of the world, grab some family members, grab your partner, grab your friends, and hit the road, because we happen to live in the coolest, most wonderful paradise we found on the planet. God bless you all in the Circle Republic.
Let's give Senator Merkley a round of applause. Before we leave, I